Welcome to Valhalla Games Podcast, Episode 8, A New Hope. It's been a period of total war. Finally, Allied armies are landing in hidden locations on Normandy. D-Day is an attempt to win their first European battles against the evil Nazi Empire. A short time later, Soviet forces, now allied with the US and Commonwealth, strike through Romania into Hungary and advance on Fortress Budapest. Well, hang on a sec, we'll need music for that. Come with us on our journey as Dan takes on the Germans in Normandy and Rex takes on the Germans in Budapest. Welcome to Valhalla Games Podcast again, and let's get started.
Right, Rex. Let's put the people out of their misery. Let's get into the swing of things. It's been ages since we did this because we've been so busy, so let's share with people what we've been busy doing. Go for it.
Busy doing Soviets. A lot of Soviets. Oh my gosh.
Before you start, I found this really ironic that like at the start of this year, I think I published a thing going, New Year, new army for Dan, here's my Soviets, and you've ended up doing them.
Yeah, so it was a very strange series of events which led to me doing Soviets. We talked about last podcast. We talked about how I invited myself to Brian Cook's Campaign Budapest Day, and then realised shortly thereafter that there was no Fallschirmjäger in there, and there was none of the other armies I had, so I had to build a new army. So it was either really, I didn't really want to build a minor power army because I wouldn't really get a chance to use them, and it takes me so long to paint anything. So I thought I'd do my Winter Germans, or I could go out and buy a whole new army of Winter Soviets and do that. He was short on Soviets, so I said, hey, I'll build some Soviets. So I went and bought a plastic box of Soviets and put them all together. Then I bought some medals, and I bought a few off a couple of the Bold Action Australia New Zealand webpage, some excess troops from there, and a few off eBay and a few from the local gaming store, and started putting them all together. And then skipping forward a bit, I'll come back to the actual assembly and painting thing, but skipping forward a bit, it was about a week out from the event, and I was thinking, what's going on? I haven't actually heard anything. These guys are really disorganized. I better get in touch with them. So I sent them I went into Facebook Messenger to send a message and say, what's going on? Why haven't you contacted me? Are we still on? And there's a message from 2 weeks beforehand saying, hey, Rex, you still keen? I need to get things organised in the next few days. So if you're still keen, then let me know, and I'll give you an army. And I was like, oh, no, I've missed it, and I've blown my chance, and that's the end of it. It's the end of life as I know it. So,
but how did it go?
Yeah, so I contacted Brian, and he said, oh, look, I've possibly slot you in, but I'd have to get another guy because we've actually got all the tables and everything sorted out, and we've got exactly the right amount of people. And I said, look, I haven't really finished my army anyway. It was going to be a huge push. Let's just leave it, and I'll catch up with you next time. And he said, oh, come for a club day and it'll be great. And I said, yeah. So then I stopped painting and assembling Soviets. Couple of days, I was a bit sad, I have to say.
Fatal error. Don't stop wargaming.
Yeah, that's the problem. A couple of days later, I get a message. Hey, Rex, somebody's dropped out. Do you want to come along and bring your Soviets? And of course, I straight back said, yes, I'm totally in. Yep, what do you want me to do? I'm ready. And then he sent me out the selectors. And then I took a look at the selectors. I took a look at what I had made, because I'd made a variety of things, just kind of a generic Soviet list. And A plus B did not equal C. And all of a sudden I was a week out from the gaming day, and I needed to basically go and buy another box of plastics, start putting guys together again, and painting or priming, painting up from scratch in a week. And I tell you, that was a meat grinder. I'm never doing that again. Famous last words. But I got them. I got them. Yeah, until next time. But I got them done. I got them done to a point where I was happy enough to take them along. They weren't finished, but I did absolutely no compromise miniatures. But they just weren't finished miniatures. So I didn't skimp on. I made sure they all had plastic putty in the joins, and I made sure the bases were all nice, but I didn't get the finishing, the highlights done. But, man, I painted a lot. I painted a lot, Dan. Really a lot.
Well, I loved the video you put up, or the couple of videos you put up, whatever it was now on the YouTube channel. They looked fantastically coming along, and I loved the video, the couple of still photos you had on ValhallaGames.net of them as well. So they looked fantastic. I'm looking forward to anything you've got to share with us more visually, maybe from the tournament. Am I dangling? Is there anything else coming?
I have got some other stuff. The lighting wasn't so great, so with my big whopping boat anchor SLR camera, it was hard to get a decent shot. But I got some good ones. But some of the other guys got some good ones as well, and shared them out. So I'm going to pilfer those and put them up on Valhalla Games for everybody to be able to access them in one spot. And I tell you, the terrain was amazing. And some of the guys there had some really, really nice miniatures. And of course, Brian Cook's stuff was there, who wrote the book, and in my opinion, one of the best bold action painters out there, full stop. And his stuff was just magnificent. And funnily enough, there was a few guys like me that were lacking. It's like, well, I can play these guys, but I don't have any Hungarians. I can play some Germans, but I don't have any Hungarians. So of course Brian says, well, here's a couple of squads of Hungarians you can play with, and here's some Romanians for you, and you get Hungarians, and you get Romanians, and you get. So half
it's like the Ellen DeGeneres show. Everyone look underneath your seats. You're all taking home some Hungarians, but you can't take them home. You play with them though.
Yep. So so all round the table, not only all round the round the hall, which was a total of 16 guys, 8 tables, 16 guys, was a mix of really nicely painted up and really, really exceptionally painted up miniatures, with some really nice terrain and some really, really exceptional terrain. So I've definitely got some pictures. I'll need to put some love and care into presenting them nicely, and I'll put them up on ValhallaGames.net, and let's say they will appear there on the 12th of the 7th, 2019. So if you're looking at this podcast in 6 months' time, you can go back and have a look there.
Nice. I'm looking forward to seeing your Army Rex. I'm looking forward to showing us what you've achieved in that time. I'm really impressed that I love the way you said where you'd got to with it, because I believe in that as well. Like, if you're not finished, then get them to a point where you're not doing something wrong. You get them to a point where all you have to do is add to them to be finished. You're not having to undo anything. Like if it's not finished, you haven't done something that's sort of a finishing effect, in the way of weathering or something like that, if they're not finished yet. So I really like that. Is that where you think you've got?
Yeah. So with the faces, my face recipe, which was given to me by you, Dan, involves a base coat, and then another kind of a base coat on top, and then a wash, and then a highlight, and then then some eyes, and etc., etc. So all I got done was the base coat, the initial base coat, and then the secondary base coat, which is more like a highlight, but I didn't wash them, and I didn't do the eyes, because I didn't want to rush all that and just have them half done. But I did do a couple of test models, one in a greatcoat and deep snow theme, and one in the quilted army theme, and I was pretty happy with those. But I also, Dan, did you see that I took a leaf out of your book with the basing?
Yeah, I did. I really, really liked it, and my favorite is the Zis 3, the base for that gun. So I'm looking forward to seeing more photos of that, Rex.
Yeah, I was really happy with it. It's not that difficult. So what I did just for to
Oh,
try
don't
and
tell everyone. I wanted people to think it
oh,
was really hard, and
it
I've done
was
a good job.
really difficult. It was really, really hard. It
No,
took
it's not, is it? It's
forever.
not
No,
once
it's
you get
not.
it.
So all we did is we got some styrene sheets off the from the train set guys, from the local hobby store that the train set guys would use to face up their buildings in brick. And I said, well, brick and cobblestones, not that much difference. I'm just going to whack that down on the base, and then sprinkle a few bricks that I purchased. I purchased a little bag of bricks on there, and a little bit of Rex's patented driveway gravel, just to make up for rubble. But the cool thing that I added, I think you'll agree, Dan, and hopefully the listeners will too once they see it, is while I was at the train set shop, I got some styrene plastic girders. Did you see those?
Yes, I did. I did. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you finished telling me about it. Go for it.
Yeah, the plastic girders, and you just cut them in weird angles, and kind of had one falling over another one, and then I got some ice block sticks and tore them into sort of three pieces, widthwise, so they're only sort of about the size of a match, and then snapped them off really roughly so that they looked like they were torn and shredded in some sort of an explosion, and laid them over at odd angles. And I'm really happy with that. Really happy. So happy, Dan, that as you know, I did half the basing in a deep snow theme. I was going to put a couple of little bushes there with snow on them, and half the basing in the rubble theme. Guess what?
What?
I'm going to rebase the deep snow ones as rubble,
Nice.
because I liked it so much. And the deep snow ones just look so plain by comparison. So, yeah, and that's probably what I should have done in the first place. Note to self, don't split your basing. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but yeah, I'm going to keep it
Well,
consistent throughout.
you could do it another way. I mean, if you're going to be putting snow drifts around the urban rubble basing,
Which I
then
am.
what? Okay, well then you could think of there's going to be some even deeper parts. So the guys with the snow on their base, you could simply put 2 or 3 bricks up out of the snow, and then put a little bit more snow on top of those bricks, so that it's just a deeper snowdrift around those parts. You can still get the same effect.
Yeah, I'll have a look at it and see what I can do. But yeah, it's as I say, I kind of copied you, and hopefully I've improved on the thing a little bit. And yeah, it's really nice. I've been really happy with that. And the bases, you know what they say, faces, bases, and flags. So my bases were pretty good, and I don't think people look too much at the miniatures on the day. So
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, the I-beam thing's fantastic. I specifically stayed away from it on my ones because I wanted it to sort of be like not an industrial part of town and stuff like that. But what you've done is fantastic. I did a whole Black Templars army for for Warhammer 40,000 like that once, and I can tell you that if you do it that way in urban rubble and stuff like that, and you can also get paper clips and stick paper clips coming out underneath the rubble and stuff like that. It looks like rebar coming out of the rubble, and you can also get little bits of like pen, like the ballpoint pen sort of ink inserts or whatever, and cut it up and stick that out as little pipes and stuff like that occasionally, and all that sort of stuff. And it's great. But I love what you've done, Rex. It's fantastic.
yeah, there's a few ideas that I might have a think about. Now that I have unlimited time, I only have to finish my Soviets off now before October. What could possibly go wrong with that? Maybe I can improve it even more. So I'll be looking forward to that. Anyway, so that's the summary of my my rush to get ready for campaign Budapest. Unfortunately, the war, time tide, and war waits for no man, and it certainly didn't wait for me. Stints of 7 hours a night for the last 3 days of painting. were a bit of a tax, but man, it was fantastic to go and check it out. Shall I tell you a little bit about the day then?
Yeah, good. Well, why don't we go for a break now? And I am dying to hear about the day. Absolutely. When you come back, tell us all about it.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon,
All
Dan.
right. Talk to you after the break. Right, Rex, well, you kept me waiting long enough. So we talked about already the hobby for your Fortress Budapest and the lead up to it. Come on, I'm dying to know. Spill all the beans for me and the listeners. Put me out of my misery. Tell us about the Fortress Budapest event day.
Yeah. So first of all, for those who don't know, Fortress Budapest is a new campaign book, a new bolt action campaign book that was written by Brian Cook, Australian bloke that's big in the bolt action community, and he's pitched this book to Warlord Games, and they probably said the same as what I said. Fortress where? And I wasn't actually planning to buy the book. Were you, Dan?
As soon as I knew it was by Brian Cook, then yes, I was. And then I heard some other podcasts and stuff like that, and I got hold of you. And what did I tell you?
I think you just said buy it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go from there then. What made you want to buy it after I'd had a discussion with you?
Yeah, so I listened to, as you have alluded to, the interview with the author on another podcast. And if you go to valhallagames.net and find the Fortress Budapest tag in the cloud tag thingy up in the top right corner, you'll actually be able to get a link to that podcast. And that was really great because not only is it, well, a lot of people are saying it's the best campaign book ever written for bolt action. It's, I would think, the best photography ever done for a campaign book ever. And it's a really obscure piece of history that certainly I didn't know anything about because we had our eyes focused on Battle of the Bulge and A Bridge Too Far kind of time frame. And meanwhile, all this was going on over in the Eastern Front. And because it wasn't US or British involved, we didn't really hear about it. So I wasn't planning to buy it at all. I heard the podcast about a quarter of the way through the podcast. I'd already bought it. I'd already ordered it. So yeah, it was really fantastic. And one of the reasons that I ordered it was because of the crazy rules, special rules that are relating to the city rubble fighting and all that sort of stuff, which I guess dovetails in pretty well to me actually talking about the campaigns that we did on the day.
Yeah, awesome. And I believe there's a couple of podcasts that really switched me on to that book. One was by Cast Dice, and the other one was Down Order Podcast, and both of them really flicked my switch. So either one of those, and I know you've got a link to one at least on there. Yeah, they really boded well, and so it came to fruition when we got the book, didn't it?
Yeah, Down Order was the one that I had in mind. Not only did the podcast host chat about Fortress Budapest, but he took the opportunity to pump Brian Cook for everything that he knew about Anzac Day, which I thought was quite funny as well. Luckily, he didn't call me up. I would have felt a bit on the spot, but he did really well. He talked about Anzac Day because that's normal to us in Australia and New Zealand, being Anzacs, but other parts of the world, you say Anzac Day, they probably haven't got a clue what's going on.
Yeah, and being a New Zealander, I loved his description of the game of two up, because this side of the Tasman would sit there and look at them playing that daft game, going, "What the hell is that game about?" So probably the best player's guide to two up ever, Brian Cook. Well done.
Yep, Down Order podcast, and as I say, a link in the show notes, so you can go there and find it and read all about, listen all about Fortress Budapest, but more importantly, two up.
Right, go for it, Rex.
All right, so it was down at Brian's club down at that he's a member of down in Sydney, southern Sydney. So it was on. Two games. Started at 10 a.m., which was pretty civilised time. A briefing at 10 a.m. for those of us that have to travel 2 hours to get there. So I went down there and I navigated and found it. Walked in. My goodness, what a fantastic club setting. It was a huge place. There must have been, there was 8 tables for us, and then there must have been another 8 tables for other things, and then there was probably another 8 or 9 or 10 tables for guys playing different game systems that I'd never seen before. So yeah, fantastic club,
Great.
well supported, and just the sort of thing that that you were talking about with your club, I guess they reached that critical point where they can afford to hire out a great venue and have a really big open space that was great to game in. So yeah, so I got assigned. It was a 2-game day. Got assigned 2 games. My game were Scenario 12 from the Fortress Budapest book, which is. Are you ready for this, Dan?
Yep.
Something like that. Cemetery. You can read that in the book. My Hungarian pronunciation is not real good, right? And then game 2, I had Street Fight and Pest, and which is in Budapest, which is actually 2 cities apparently, or at least was. So both of them were city rubble battle things. But the first one is the scenario that everybody's talking about all over the planet, Dan. The cemetery scenario.
This is the one that I want to play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
So I got a really great scenario. Turned up there and had the briefing. Met Brian. He's a really nice guy. Met a whole bunch of other guys from the club as well. Got paired up and started on our first game. So I might just read you a couple of little bits out of the game, right? So deployment. No troops are deployed at the start of the game. Soviet units, which is me, can enter the table from their edge on turn 1, advance a run order, usual sort of thing. All right. But more importantly for me, so we get to choose a couple of city siege assets. There's a city siege asset per 500 points. So I had a 1,000-point game, so 2 city siege assets. And here's the description. Some urban fighting dragged on for so long that the Battle of the City essentially became a siege. Budapest was a prime example of this, with 108 days of combat between its encirclement and the final capitulation of the defenders. All right, so that sounds pretty spicy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But here's some attackers. I'll just pick out a couple of good ones. You have attackers' assets, defenders' assets, and neutral assets. So in neutral assets, sewer infiltration. Any of the player's infantries may enter the table using the sewer movement rules on page 160 of this book. Basically what that means is that you can pop out anywhere on the table that will, as far as we were concerned, that had an objective marker. But you risk the chance of being lost in the sewer or the sewer collapsing on you and that unit being lost forever. So do you like that rule, Dan?
Ah, yep. So I think that's similar to one in one of the Ostfront scenarios where you have the sectors and stuff. Yeah, it's a pretty cool rule. So did you have to take like a leadership test every turn or something that you didn't pop out to see if you became lost or something? A morale test?
I didn't actually take that one. You know why? Have a think why. See if you can guess.
Because you didn't want to get your units lost.
No, because there was no sewers there because there's too many dead bodies and tombs and crypts and stuff. So how's that for
Yeah.
themey, right?
Nice.
Yep. So this is specific to the cemetery scenario. What I did take is a similar one called night infiltration, and basically what that was talking about is because the cemetery was had crypts and tombstones and all that stuff, and the terrain was beautiful as well. It was assumed that in the night you could sneak up behind some of those tombstones and just lie in wait and spring out. So what I actually had was the chance to deploy from any of my almost chain of command jump-off markers, deploy from any of my objective markers, because I'd been hiding there. So that was cool. So I got to get right up the field and deploy from some of those markers very early on. And so did he, by the way.
Oh, that's great.
So also another one is Big Push. The player receives a free infantry unit, identical to the cheapest one already in their army list. So that was essentially an extra free Soviet unit. But I didn't take that one because I had enough trouble painting the guys that I had, right? So I didn't take that one.
Yeah, cunning, very cunning.
Yeah. My opponent took Fortified Building, which is a defender's asset. Choose a building on the table. All infantry or artillery units inside this building add a further +1 extra protection offered by the building up to a maximum of +6 to wound. 6+ to wound.
Right.
So not only is he hardcover +2, or +2 for hardcover to hit, and not only is he in a building, but he's in a fortified building as well. So that makes it really, really hard to pick those guys out of that building. So,
yep.
In my second game, actually, my guy chose street barricades. Defending player receives D3 6-inch linear hardcover obstacles that can be deployed on any streets outside the opponent's deployment zone. So there was that. But there was another one too that came into play, which wasn't actually an asset. It was actually a rubble rule, shooting in rubble. I think some of these, as you say, are taken from other books as well. Some of them have been added to, but some of them are from other books. The rubble rule, plentiful hiding places in rubble means the hit modifier provides the infantry occupying it bonuses, basically. Rubble counts as hard cover when shot across, but if you're inside the rubber, and depending on your hit dice, so if you're down, you or no order dice against it, or an ambush, you get a -3 to hit, cumulative with the down order.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're down and in rubble, it's -5 to hit. I guess.
Wow, that's tasty.
I guess if once you go above 7, it's kind of irrelevant anyway. But it makes those guys really hard to pick out. If you're firing or rallying, -2, which is basically hard cover anyway. But so that was that's cumulative with hard cover. So that's -4. So yeah, it was really hard. The defenders definitely I think had the benefit on the day. It was really tough to dig them out.
Yeah.
But basically the way the game went was my opponent Dave, really nice guy, and had a really nicely painted army as well. I was playing Soviets. He was playing Hungarian infantry, and his stuff was really nice. I'll get the photos up on ValhallaGames.net. You can go and have a look. And what happened was we had basically roll for a number of objectives, and then whoever holds the most objectives at the end of the game wins,
Yep.
kind of thing. Plus, it was a bonus for me being within 12 inches of his table edge. And I came on advanced deploying because of my my night deployment. He came on as well, advanced deployment for some rule that he had. I don't know what that was. One of the special rules that I just read out for you. There's a number of them in there.
Yep.
And so we basically both deployed in the center of the table. It was bizarre.
That's great. That's cool. You sort of started in entrenching positions and, yep, concealed approaches and everything. Wow, really thematic. All right. So how did the game go then? How did it pan out?
Yeah, so it was a tough game for me because I had to make the distance. It was me that was responsible for attacking. I was the attacking player. Normal thing that you get in an attacker-defender scenario. If you're a defender, all you have to do is prevent the attacker. If you're an attacker, you have to make all that distance and kill the guys and get to the markers. So yeah, it was a tough game. But one of the rules that he had, one of the special rules that he had taken was ammunition dump. So he nominated a building that was an ammunition dump, and he got some benefit for that. I can't remember what it was.
Rerolls. I think it's rerolls
Yeah, it was,
to.
That's right. It was
missed rolls to hit. I think
it was reroll for, was it ones or missed? Yeah, we actually got it wrong, and we stuffed it up a little bit, but it didn't matter because we still had fun. But I think it's rerolls for when you miss, but only for one unit that you've allocated as being the unit that's getting the ammunition that round.
Yep.
Or that, yeah. So I think that was what it was. But anyway, he shredded me. My guys did pretty well, but I rolled some terrible dice. My flamethrowers rolled ones, both times.
Oh God.
Okay. And then I think one rolled a 1 to say it was out of fuel as well. And then the next round, my flamethrower rolled a 1 as well. And he had a sniper way up in the top of a building that was just picking off guys at will, and that wasn't helping either. And he was right there in the fortified building and the ammunition dump there as well. And I don't know, it really felt like a meat grinder. And then he rolled out his tank, started lighting me up from the flank on that. So that was crazy. I brought on my Lend-Lease Sherman. Rolled up the field, and I said, right, now I'm going to teach you some lessons. And he brought across a couple of poxy guys, and I'm looking at them going, that's not going to make a dent. And then, of course, he has a Panzerfaust, and 2 Panzerfausts, actually, and that was the end of it. No more tank. So, yeah, so I made a last-ditch effort, ran up the exposed flank and ducked into the back of the fortified building, which luckily had the back end of it blown off and rubble all scattered around, and I was able to camp on that marker, on that objective marker, while I was in rubble and down. So I got all those bonuses, and luckily again that objective marker was within 12 inches of the back edge of the table, so I was able to get a couple of victory points, one for holding the marker, or a couple for holding the marker, I can't remember, and then one for being without 12 inches from the back. And I think every other unit of mine got destroyed, and there was these one guy sitting there going, send reinforcements please. But it was a fantastic game. It took us an hour to play the first round.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because there was so many new rules and so many things at play, and we were just going, what? And our heads were spinning, but yeah, it was great. We were having a real good laugh. So yep, so Dave, great guy, fantastic game. I lost pretty severely, but I managed to retain some dignity by having one unit on the objective marker at the end. But that was about it. That was about the only positive thing in the game, apart from the fact that it was a fantastic game and fantastic scenery.
Great. Well, it must have been a fantastic game because you've remembered that really, really well from the day. So I was living that along with you. So well done. Those scenarios for introducing new rules and stuff can take a long time to get in the swing to start with. So it's probably very clever of Brian to just have the 2 games for each player on the day of the event.
Yeah, I'm pleased that he did because by the end of game two, well, by about halfway through game two, all those nights staying up to 1 a.m. painting the week before starting to take their toll, and I was visibly drooping like a sad plant that hadn't been watered for a week.
All right. So then you had a bit of lunch, a bit of a break, did you?
Yeah, had a bit of lunch. Fantastic to have the game club meet in an RSL or RSA, I think you call it in New Zealand.
Yep.
So it's a chance to actually that's Returned Servicemen's Association, by the way, for those of you who aren't in Australia or New Zealand. So it was great to have that. Great to have that opportunity there, just to go and sit at a really nice restaurant, have a burger and chips, and chat with some of the other guys talking about podcasts and games and painting and all sorts. So I really enjoyed that actually. But we got back pretty quick to it because I knew that the last game had taken so long. I was going, oh, I better get a jump start on this on the second one.
Yep.
So second one was Street Fight and Pest, as I said. The guy that I fought was Zane, and he had his brother there. I'm sorry, I can't remember his brother's name, and he was teaching his brother how to play bolt action. So that was quite good actually, because it slowed the game down a little bit and gave me a chance to think some strategy while they were talking. So that gave me a little bit of breathing room. So I was on a table that was set up. Essentially a kind of a crossroads, but mainly city streets, lots and lots of foreground buildings. So probably about, I don't know, 10 or 12 foreground buildings just off the top of my head. And it was a nice table, really nice battle mat. And he was playing Hungarian assault guns, is what it actually says here in the campaign day players pack. I'm not sure what that is, but he was playing Hungarians, and he actually had a lot of, as I said before, you get some Soviets and you get some Hungarians, so he had a lot of Brian Cook's army. So that was
lovely.
I don't know what was his and what was Brian's, but it was all painted awesomely, and I don't think he'd played with the army before either, which matched in well with me because I had not played with my army apart from the one game previous. But it was a beautiful, beautiful army, like really fantastic. My photos, I tried my hardest, but in the dark room, and I didn't want to be that guy with the tripod, you know. Oh, can you just wait on a minute while I get my tripod out and hang on a second, let me get my light meter, and I want to make sure that I've got the depth of field right. I didn't want to be that guy, so I took some photos, but I wasn't able to really capture it. But yeah, one of the nicest armies I've ever seen. It was fantastic. So that was again another attack of defender scenario. Obviously. Well, not obviously, but if you know the story, basically the Soviets, who eventually joined up with Romanians, I think, is that correct? Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Were attacking into Hungary and finally attacking into the Fortress of Budapest city. Hence the name of the book. And so it was their job just to stay put and not die. It was my job to grind through all that city terrain and just, fight for every foot and every door and building to building and all that. So it was a tough game. So we started out. I started out with a preparatory barrage. So that was good. I got to put a few pin markers on at least, and I think that helped. And I did well with that. But then I started pushing in, and all his guys were down behind hard cover, and it was just tough. It was tough. I'm not sure really how to handle that. I thought I was good because I had 2 flamethrowers. Themey, not cheesy, Dan.
Yep. Yeah, well, it is themey. Yep, especially in that environment.
Yep. So 2 flamethrowers. I thought I'm going to roast these guys out of here. It's going to be, I'm going to be laughing. But, did you know those flamethrowers have only got a 6-inch range, Dan?
Yep.
Because I've never played flamethrowers before, right? So 6 inches didn't sound too bad before, but when you get there on the day, 6 inches is pretty close. You got to run a lot before you get to 6 inches.
Yeah, and you still have some negative modifiers for flamethrowers as well, like moving and stuff like that. I don't really get the obviously they don't count cover and all that sort of thing. But uh, from memory, I do believe you get a minus for moving with a flamethrower, don't you?
I think so, yeah. As I say, it's my first time with flamethrowers. You always seem to flame me, and it's just a big chicken roast, and I thought they were overpowered. But when I tried to play them, Dan, maybe it's something to do with my flamethrower ability. But yeah, I think it's probably all those ones that I rolled as well. They weren't helping.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I always, I always wonder why flamethrowers, why you get a penalty to hit with a flamethrower when you've moved, because it's like a well, you've got this massive arc of fire coming out the end of it. You're not really too concerned about the intricacies of aiming with it. But anyway,
Yeah. So yeah, he just bunkered down behind hard cover, and yeah, I just threw myself up against the hardcover over and over again. By the time my troops got there, there was only 3 or 4 guys left, and I'm going to assault. Well, not with 3 or 4 guys, you're not. So yeah, it was a real tough game, and I ended up. I think he. So basically, I just threw myself at him over and over again because I had to get through. Sniper was rolling badly, my flamethrowers were rolling badly, my tank I don't think I was really using properly. Tanks in a built-up environment, I'm not sure. It still should probably go well, but I don't know. I think I was playing it badly, but it ended up being that he wiped the table on me, Dan. Yeah.
yeah, I suppose one thing is probably running tanks into buildings and just trying to run tanks over things if you can as well. Did you give that a blast?
Yeah, I wanted to, but there was a huge piece of rubble in the way. Now, I don't know if this is from a previous book as well, but in the Campaign Budapest book, there's special rules for tanks and rubble. Have you seen that?
Yep. I have not had that big a chance to peruse into it, so yep, go for it.
So basically, where there's rubble, if you go over it, when you hit the rubble, you have to roll.
Yep.
And on a certain roll, you go through fine. On a certain roll, you get stuck. On a certain roll,
Yes. Yep.
there's a like a kind of a top-down kind of rule that applies to the bottom. So if you think of that scene in Saving Private Ryan where the tank comes over, and Rommel, exposes the bottom armor to the guys. But then there's another one where you roll it and you hit a soft patch and your tank just disappears down into the sewers or wherever, never to be seen again. So
nice.
Not only that, it's rough ground, so you can't run over it. So there was a strategically placed. I don't know if the guys had done it on purpose just to taunt me. I think they probably did when they set up the terrain. But yeah, where I brought my tank on, or either place where I brought my tank on, I would have had to go over rubble, and I wasn't keen to waste the whole turn in that, and then risk the tank ending up at the bottom of some sewer somewhere. So, but anyway, best.
But
best
I
forgotten that
love
game.
your considerations. I love the way you're just describing this to me now. Real considerations due to the terrain that that's why those scenarios have been written like that, and that's why the rules have been written like that. I love the way you're talking to me now, real life scenario situations that you would find.
Yeah, it was a really good game. I really enjoyed it. Well done to the guys. They beat me fair and square, no doubt about that. I've got, I think, as a commander, I have things to learn about fighting in an urban environment, Dan. So I'm gonna have to do some of that urban action when you come see me next.
Some hot urban action. Yeah. The bayonet and assault weapons become king. Really, I think.
Yeah. Well, I did have two 12-man machine gun squads, and 2 flamethrowers, but clearly something wasn't going right in my favour. But anyway,
SMG squads. Well, yeah. I mean, you have to get there first, don't you? So if you got, I guess killing areas of open ground and stuff like that too, it's the real hazards.
Yeah, he had a couple of really interesting squads. One squad was a university students.
Yep.
And so that you can imagine university students banding together angry with sticks and
Yeah.
stones and a few old World War One rifles or whatever. So they were inexperienced fanatics.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've not encountered that before, but inexperienced fanatics. Yeah, that's funny. Didn't even get a chance to engage them, so it didn't really matter because they just got taken care of. But probably that's the best. But enough we should say about that.
Yeah. Right.
But
So I got a question for you. So the terrain in that book is absolutely beautiful. You've mentioned the terrain already. Was all the from sort of what you've seen? Did you believe that majority of the terrain from the book that um, and these are their nom de guerres, I do believe, Howard Yowie and Akhtar Giraffe, whatever their real names are. Was their terrain all there on display for you to use?
um, I think the majority of it was, and it was exceptional. It was the best terrain, probably the best terrain I've ever seen.
Nice.
It was an event day, so half an hour before the game, guys were coming in with big boxes and just chucking stuff down on a battle mat, and that was that. Whereas in the book, clearly, I think from the interview, Brian Cook, set everything up in his garage and, photographed it, I would imagine, over a period of days. And, you can see that there's rubble and, old 44-gallon drums and, bricks and all kinds of stuff all scattered around. And that kind of, what do we call it, terrain, what do you call it, Dan? I think you got a word for it.
Oh, just sort of blending it into the mat and stuff like that. But
Yeah, so there
your
wasn't.
expectations of the two are completely different, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so there wasn't so much of that, but the terrain itself was just fantastic. There was a couple of pieces, particularly. One was the game that I fought first in the cemetery, and that was like a building, like a town hall type building, almost it seemed like, with the back blown out of it, and that was really
Yeah, I love
beautiful.
it.
And the other one was in the scenario that I fought, Street Fight and Pest, because it's just a generic street fight scenario. There was two of those going on at once. I was on the
Yep.
table with the foreground buildings. And that was really nice. But next to me was guys fighting exactly the same scenario on the table that had the broken down tram car from the
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and that big maybe 7-story apartment block that looks
The one with the
reasonably.
glider in the top.
It didn't. I'm not sure if it's that one or not. Unfortunately, we didn't see the plane in the building. Yeah, that was a shame. But there was it was a really really nice building. And the front of it was reasonably complete, but then you walked around the back, and the whole back piece was missing, and all the floorboards were all hanging down
Oh,
from
lovely.
each floor, as if the whole back of the building had just disappeared and left the floorboards kind of torn away and had a central staircase, much the same as what you see in an office block today, like in
Yep.
a building apartment today. Had a central staircase that sort of went, left and right, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and that was all exposed from the back, so you could you could actually get the guys up the stairs to the landing and then to the next floor, and then it was just magic. But as I say, I'll put all the photos that I've got up on valhallagames.net around the 16th of the 7th, I think I said, and I'll try and keep them all together on that date, and including you'll see Brian Cook wearing the man with two hats, wearing
Yeah.
wearing both the Soviet hat and then switching over to the Hungarian hat while he was doing the briefing. So that was pretty funny. But a fantastic day for sure, Dan.
Oh, look, it just sounds absolutely fantastic, and especially when you're describing about the terrain and stuff like that. Um, yeah, a real treat for you to play on that. Makes me wish I was living over there, or I had time to get over and do that. So Yeah, oh, I'm glad you had a fantastic time. That really invigorates the hobby again for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And forcing myself to paint leading up to it was both a meat grinder, but also incredibly satisfying to be able to push that along and get such a lot done in a short time. Yeah, so thanks again to Brian Cook and his club. I'm not sure the name of his club, but really well organised, great guys and girls, great venue. Yeah, everything you could want and wargaming buddies. So well done.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well that weekend was fantastic for both of us. Then different parts across the Tasman, but sounds like a glorious weekend of gaming was had for all. And why don't we take a wee short break there for our listeners to go away and grab a brew or something, and we'll see you afterwards for a bit of a wrap up.
Sounds good. All right, talk to you soon, Dan.
Mother dear, I'm writing you from somewhere in France, hoping this finds you well. Sergeant says I'm doing fine, a soldier and a half. Here's a song that we'll all sing, it'll make you laugh. We're gonna hang out the washing on the Siegfried line. Have you any dirty washing, mother dear? We're going to hang out the washing on the Siegfried line, 'cause the washing day is here. Whether the weather may be wet or fine, we'll just rub along without a care. We're gonna hang out the washing on the Siegfried line, if the Siegfried line still...
Hey Dan, so you've done a bit of gaming then, done a bit of bold action lately. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, apart from, I suppose, the normally sort of scheduled games, I've had a few with friends around the army base here or in with the club. We also, of course, had recently our, well, time's slipping away now, but we had the 75th anniversary of D-Day, on which our club, the Christchurch Wargaming Club, had a pretty big event, actually. Did you see the stuff I sent through to you, Rex?
I did. Those videos, fantastic. There's guys, displays of uniforms, and obviously you guys playing your game, and there was some Flames of War guys there as well, playing a little bit larger games, and some information, and yeah, it looked really good. Looked really well organised.
Yep. No, look, the whole thing was done really well. So, on our behalf for the 28mm gaming, our linchpin, and I believe one of the linchpins of actually getting the whole event together, was Tony Normandy. And he's one of the senior members of the club. And he had a great idea, along with some of the other gamers and some of the other people whose circles he moves in, some of the militaria collectors and stuff like that. And he wanted to really put on display and some fun gaming for the club, but also put on display that, bystanders and the public could get something out of. So what he did is he went to the Woolston Men's Club, Working Men's Club, where our base for our Christchurch Wargaming Club is, and eventually what he had got organised when he talked to everybody, and the end product was, thanks to the coordinators and thanks to the contributors, was we had the militaria, the arms collectors and uniforms collectors, all authentic uniforms, and some replica items in there in the regard of arms, but a load of real weapons as well from the time. We had some 1/16 scale tanks on display. We had we had a fantastic collection of 112 Dragon action figures. The 112 sort of posable action figures are really well detailed ones, with the uniforms right down to magazine pouches that unbuckle and stuff like that. They're really great. We had Flames of War, big game of Flames of War set up. Thanks to those guys, they did a fantastic job. And the Flames of War was actually the landings. So we had the D-Day landing by the guys on the Flames of War table. And then we had a massive amount of tables stuck together on our behalf, a 28mm, and we were running D+4. So basically, we had shrunken the scale a lot so that the I guess the beaches and then the bridgeheads further inland had combined together. Being D+4, we've got the Hitlerjugend Panzer Division started to turn up. 21st Panzer Division is starting to get into action. The Panzerlehr Division had turned up as well. And, the Germans sort of counterattacking that stage, and the scene was set really for our battle, which was D+4.
Ah, sounds fantastic. So, how many people in your club? It's a big club, eh?
It is a really big club. Like a lot of well-established clubs, and like a lot of wargamers in general, I suppose. The club itself has got we've got a couple of hundred members, and they'll regularly turn out for an AGM and stuff like that. The reality is that for big events, we'll have a really great turnout. For gaming days and stuff like that. We'll also have pretty good turnouts on club nights. If anyone's listening to this from around Christchurch and doesn't know of us, so we game on Thursday nights and then on Sundays as well. Apart from the fantastic and really large following of historical gamers, we've also got a really large amount of Warhammer 40k players, other sci-fi and fantasy systems, Age of Sigmar as well. So yeah, it is a really, really big club. Probably one of the biggest in New Zealand. Probably one of the biggest two in New Zealand, actually. I think the Wellington one challenges it for size, but apart from that, I believe it's probably the biggest one.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's really encouraging to hear of a club that's going really well. We have a club here on Central Coast New South Wales where I live, but I've never been along. They always meet on a Sunday, and Sunday I've always got stuff on with the family. I could do with a Thursday night club would be ideal for me, because Friday nights we finally made it to the end of the week night, and then the weekend's all about the kids and social stuff. So I've never really been, but I hear it's quite a good club, and it's fantastic to actually see. I mean, I do like the local gaming store, but sometimes, I think we've spoken before about the motivations for the local gaming store guy. He wants to eat and, buy shoes for his kids and what have you. So that's his main motivation, as being a supplement to his business. And fantastic that they let us play for free or cheap or whatever. But a gaming club itself is just purely for the club. And that allows them to, I guess, focus on things like membership and expanding it out. And I've always toyed with the idea of actually setting up a club. We've got a really nice local hall type thing, community hall, just maybe 4 minutes drive from where I am. Really nice, modern, clean bathrooms. Two big areas, and I think it would be fantastic for a club. But setting all that up and dealing with it and worrying about insurance and all that's just a bit more than I can handle at the moment. Maybe when I retire, Dan, what do you think?
Yeah. Good luck with retiring. But look, I mean, there's some real solid considerations now. You start a club, and suddenly you're dealing with professional sort of stakes in regards to risk and responsibility, finance, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's I mean, I thoroughly love clubs. I love the way that they're a big thing. Australia, New Zealand, England. And I encourage anyone to do it, but do it right and have themselves a little bit of protection in regards to certain things. Set some boundaries and, go for it. But
Actually,
sorry, Rex, go ahead.
Before we move off that, I know that there's a number of insurance companies that do deals specifically for clubs, bearing in mind that they're not businesses, and they don't have the same level of ability to be able to deal with risk. So if you get onto one of those clubs specialising insurance companies, they can really help you through all the admin issues, because it's in their interest to make sure everything goes smoothly, because they don't want to claim against them. So yeah, just a side issue there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing which I found you're absolutely correct in is that if you can have a gaming night during the week, like Thursday night, Friday night, something like that, but generally a Thursday night I found was the best when I was owning a store and I had a gaming night, is guys like to come in and get their gaming done, because really Friday night is family time. So the family guys normally filled the shop or filled the gaming sort of thing on a Thursday, and then the single guys or whatever would quite often, if not both nights, they'd be quite often be a lot freer on Sundays. And of course, that's not how everybody is. That doesn't fit everyone's pattern of life and the description of everyone accurately. But that was a fairly large percentage of gaming, is that guys wanted to get the game Thursday night, but still have their full weekend.
Fantastic. And you never know, I might even get a game in myself on Thursday night this week, so I'm looking forward to that. But back to D-Day. So as we've discussed before, you were British Paras. Tell me about how that went. Tell me about the lead up to that in terms of prep for the campaign specifically.
Yeah, so I guess hopefully people listening to this will have listened or watched the YouTube channel, and if not, please get over there and have a look, Valhalla Games, and look for the black icon on it. But you can actually see D-Day Battle Prep, or D-Day 75th Battle Prep on there, and you can see sort of 3 or 4 installments I did on the Paras, and added a whole force. One thing, I think Tony did a great job. Tony did a magnificent job in investing time in setting the scene, setting rules that set the scene, investing in like off-board artillery, assets, support, when they got support, the size of the artillery, the caliber of the artillery and stuff like that you're actually getting in support, a bit randomized that, some specific terrain rules to standardize them, so people know how blockage is being dealt with and stuff like that. And one of the things he dealt with was, he issued army lists out to each person. I was General Windy Gale, so I was 6th Airborne, as we know, and so my task was obviously twofold. Hold Pegasus Bridge, so that we may use it, and so that the Germans would not be able to reinforce through it, and of course make as larger perimeter or push out and make a large screen if I can, and maybe advance across that board a little bit more and push the screen out a bit further, a bit more securely. And as is historically accurate, I was against 716 Static Infantry Division, and the opponent that I was playing was a lovely lady called Estelle, and we had a great game.
Fantastic. Well, don't tell us the result yet, but I've got some questions about the
I won't.
about the game.
I won't. So we'll hold the result for the publishing of the I guess the whole event's video footage, and that will include some less detailed because of the size of the event, but it'll definitely include some sort of blow-by-blow accounts or some catch-ups during my game. I can tell you with everything going on, it wasn't as detailed as what we normally do, but I'm pretty sure people are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, sounds good. I've seen the footage. I need to get right on that, don't I? But it looked like a fun game for sure. So I don't know. I don't mean to be sexist here or offend anybody, but you were playing against a female wargamer. Now, tell me about that, because there's not too many female wargamers, and I wish there were more for a whole bunch of reasons. But so she was a keen World War II person. How did that come about?
Estelle's a well-established member of the club, and I have never played her before, but it was great to meet her, and I guess we just missed each other and various meetings and tournaments and events that I'd been to. So she plays Finns normally. She's got a lovely painted army. I think Nathan from the club's helped her paint that up as well. And she sort of had to repurpose some of those models and then add some more from the other players or the other Axis players' sort of kitties, and get her army together. She was she knew exactly what she was doing as well, well experienced, and it was a great game.
And do you know if she came from fantasy, or did she come straight into World War II? Was she like have a history interest?
I think she might have said she played fantasy before, but she does have a World War II interest because she has friends and a partner, I do believe, who do reenactment, and they're part of a artillery company reenactment down here. Actually have artillery pieces and will actually fire gun salutes, artillery gun salutes and stuff like that, and reenact the artillery sort of working, carrying fire missions and that for people watching. So yeah, so she's got a real interest there, running in friends, family, household and stuff like that. So yeah, she was right into it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I might have to move to Christchurch, Dan, because seems like you guys have just got everything going on down there. 2 big hobby stores, you said.
Well, we're actually pretty well spoiled here because yeah, we have a local toy world that sells lots of Warhammer Games Workshop products, as well as your Airfix and your Tami and stuff like that. We have another store which is called Comics Compulsion, who does a lot of Games Workshop stuff and not too much other historical stuff, but has some other alternative sort of sci-fi and fantasy systems too. And we have a fantastic hobby store down here called Acorn Models, who is really great, large stockist of model railway stuff, RC cars, planes, all the scenery, yep, and like your scale model sort of paradise there as well as all the hobby stuff to go with it too. So we're actually really quite fortunate to have all that. And I suppose you could say, well, as befits a large city, but after all the strife that Christchurch has had, it's great to see those businesses prospering.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's really great, Dan. So tell me something else interesting about the day.
Well, okay, the day went really well, which is a tribute to the organisation, tribute to the spirit of all involved. The best thing about it wasn't actually just one day. It was we made a whole weekend out of it. So majority of the military guys came back for the second day. There was security on until we'd locked the place up and everything. And the war games continued the next day. So we made a whole weekend out of it. And it was really great. We had a lot of people come along. Not as many as we would have liked, because, you know, when you do this, you really want as many people to turn up as possible. But we did still have a lot of people. And what I really enjoyed about the day is that the people who came, we had so many parents come up to us with their kids and say to us quite honestly and frankly, and I really respect them for it, I don't know enough, or I don't know anything about what you guys are doing here, but I wanted to learn because, you know, I know a tiny bit, and tell us about what you're doing. Tell us about this game. Tell us about, is this real? Is this what actually happened on the day? What's going on here? And it was really, really great because we had, all the guys had the backstory for their, I guess, their area of operations. They knew what was going on. They knew why their army that they were representing was there, and they could talk to people about it. And we really could educate some people and their kids, and those children wouldn't have had those blanks filled in for them. Otherwise, by their parents, they would have had to go find out, and that's when, you know, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but maybe, you know, maybe it's going to be 50 more kids that can tell a further generation because of war games.
Well, a wise man once said, "Time spent on reconnaissance is seldom wasted," and I think that applies to coming along to a historical-based wargaming event like that. Not to say that they all have to be, and I enjoy a couple of good space elves myself, but space pixies, perhaps we should call them by the correct term. But yeah, that is really great, really encouraging. And I know at my local library, which I mentioned before, they run wargaming there. And once you start to see dads and their boys coming along, or dads or boys and them, or girls and their mums, or boys and their mums, you know, coming along, taking part. It really is great. It's just an opportunity. I mean, it's a hobby, right? By definition, it's a waste of time, I guess. But the benefits are you get to spend time away from the TV, away from electronic stuff, away from all the taxes and troubles of life, just enjoying playing something. And hey, if it's historical, you might actually learn something as well. So highly recommended. I suggest everybody take up wargaming immediately.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a lovely lady who came in, and I don't think that she knew that we were there and came to see us. But when she did come upstairs to see us, she'd obviously gone out of her way, you know, to work out, oh, these guys are in the building. Well, I'm going to pop up and see. And she said to us, now, she was of the age that she was probably the child is someone who possibly could have gone to the war. Do you know what I mean? A
Yep.
baby boomer. And she said to us, okay, I don't, and she was very honest, not critical. She said, I don't get wargaming. Why wargaming? And I could turn around and I could say to her, well, you know what? What's great is that before you asked that question, you asked me what this was and what was going on and what does this represent and all those sorts of questions. And now you didn't know, but now you do going away. And quite frankly, I've had fun telling you, and I'm having fun playing this game, and I had fun painting my models to get ready for this game. Yeah, and all these guys here, some older guys and some younger guys have had fun, and all the kids that have come in to have a look with all their parents have had fun looking. So I have been able to teach you a part of history that you didn't know. Yeah, I can let that live on, so I can sort of honour people's memories so they can live on maybe for another generation and you can share people. And I've had fun doing it. And you've hopefully had fun looking at it. She agreed, and we could see all the kids having a laugh and taking photos and stuff like that too. And it just sort of said, that's why I do it.
Did she get it?
Yeah, she did. It was great. It was a great moment. It was great to be able to say that to her and use herself as a real, a real hold her own, I guess, expectations and experience up and say, well, this is it. This is the litmus test, and this is why we do it. And she got it. It was a really good experience. It was a good thing to be able to say.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because we're not glorifying war, although everybody likes a good Saving Private Ryan, and I guess that's what we're trying to reenact. That sort of the I'm not using the word glory, but the when you do something and you succeed against all odds, and whatever you want to call that, with positive connotations, but. I guess what we do is, we think about it and we play and we have fun and we're like, I shot you up and, shot you down to the last man and you're all dead and whatever. But it does give us the flip side, which is, when it comes around to Anzac Day, which is big in Australia and New Zealand, or Remembrance Day, or, you watch Schindler's List for the fifth time because you just need to punish yourself more and more. You do have a vast amount of knowledge to be able to pin on those things, like to be able to understand it more and think about it more. And I know with some of the stuff that's going on at the moment in the world, there's a few guys threatening this and threatening that, as you always do. The leaders of various countries, some more sane than others. And when these things happen, I sort of do take a moment and kind of think, well, hey, I actually do know what this is about. Maybe you want to have a think about it before you decide that you're going to do this or that. Or maybe you want to act sooner rather than sit back and do nothing, because, hey, look what can happen if you don't. Am I getting too deep, Dan?
No, you're not. And I definitely think that, we live in a world today where history was written by the victor. Yeah, we're getting to the point where if we're not careful, history may get written by the loser. But I won't say any too more about that. But I think another thing that we have out there in the world is that all our popular movies and stuff like that, everyone has an opinion. The movies are done by people who have an opinion. I mean, we live in Australia and New Zealand, where our biggest reference probably for Gallipoli is the Peter Weir movie from 1980, I think it is. And that movie has got some glaring inaccuracies about the reasons for us being, where we were landed, about the British not taking casualties when the British absolutely were slaughtered at their actual landing point. And we live in a place where we fill ourselves these things and we educate ourselves the best we can because people want to do the best they can and they want to watch their kids watch that. But, it's just, can we educate someone on the finer details of a few things, or can we not even educate them but open their eyes to if there was something else going on, can they go and take a book out of the library? Can they research it a little bit more? Can they fill in the gaps? Because opinions can be dangerous and opinions can be completely wrong. And yeah, if we can do that, then we've done something great with a bunch of little plastic and metal soldiers that we also had fun doing. So that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, it's food for thought for sure. But so end result, a totally successciable day by the sounds of things.
Totally successful weekend, not 1 day, 2 days.
Weekend,
2
that's
days.
right.
Yeah, it was great. I don't want to give too much away because we've got the video coming out and we've had loads on. So apologies that we've got the it's not out yet, and it's July now, but that's okay because it's going to be worth it when it comes out. It's going to be a bit of a record for people to look back on and see everybody who put in loads of effort. So thanks everyone again for attending. Thank you to all the key players for all the groups, the Militaria, Tony especially, from what I can see, was the primary sort of organizer and liaison with all the other groups in order to get them there. So thanks to everyone concerned. Thanks to my opponents. One of the best things about the day is that you could play across the length. You could play across the tables. You didn't just play your opponent. The tables were joined, so you ended up basically flanking, supporting each other, stuff like that. So that was great. It was really, really good, and you'll see it in the video. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's really great, Dan. All right, well, we might take a quick break there, and then we'll come back with some more exciting news. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right, see you back in a minute.
See you soon, everyone. Right,
Okay.
Welcome back everybody. So it's been a while since we did this sort of part to the podcast. So Rex, let's lead in with what are you reading at the moment?
What am I reading? Well, I'm reading something that's relating to Project X. I think you know what that is, Dan. But I can't disclose it.
Creating mutants in Earth that could carry out mercenary operations for us?
No. It's a project we cannot disclose what this project is.
That one.
Bold
that
Action
one,
Project.
sorry.
Yeah, that one, yeah. So I'm still reading that. But I've also been reading Campaign Budapest book. I've also been reading, I've just been starting to read my D-Day book as well. I'm not sure if this quite qualifies as a history book, but I'm going to push that in there because that's all I got for you at the moment. So I'm reading those three at once, and I've also started reading, let's call it reading, a podcast on World War I history.
Nice.
And just for anybody who's interested, Dan Carson is the name of the guy, and it's called Hardcore History. And it is Blueprint for Armageddon, and it's I think 3 to 5 hour episodes on World War One.
Yep.
So you think we talk a lot, Dan?
Well,
so let's say it's 5s because my math's not good. 5 5s to 25 hours on World War One. But this guy's got the most fantastic. He's a really great orator. He can really speak and capture you and bring you into the moment. So that's what I'm reading in inverted commas.
Well, that's good because more books that can attempt to explain why the world went to war for World War One can only be a good thing, because most of us don't know, and the other half that are trying to learn just still scratch our heads and go, just why?
Yeah, and if I hear another guy, if I hear somebody else saying that we went to World War One and Two essentially because some guy shot a Duke in some black blocs country in Europe, I'm going to scream because I think it's a lot more complicated than that. But I'll know after I read/listen to my 5x5 hour
Yeah.
podcast.
I think as Captain Blackadder once said in the trenches to Baldric, we actually went to war because it was just far too much trouble not to.
Yeah. Blackadder's pretty well known for comedy, but I think that's probably pretty much the best description I've ever heard.
Well, I am reading 2 books at the moment. Well, actually, that's a lie. I'm reading lots of books at the moment, snippets. I'm snippeting lots of books, but there's 2 I'm actually supposed to be reading. The first one I'm halfway through, and it's Infantry Brigadier by Kippenberger, New Zealand colonel. He's a colonel of the World War One veteran, colonel of the 20th Battalion, which was Captain Charles Upham's battalion at the start of World War Two, and then moved up in the ranks to become a brigadier by the end, as the title infers. Very good book. Found it at a second-hand bookshop with paint and stuff all over it. It was for first edition, terrible condition, but like when you're paying $2 for it, you just got to be happy with that. And the next one is random. It's not really bolt action, that's certain, but yeah, probably has some wargaming connotations. I'm reading a book called Expedition Fawcett, which is written by, it is the diaries turned into a book of Lieutenant Colonel Fawcett of Lost City of Z fame.
Yeah, right. I know a bit about that actually. Yeah, that'd be really interesting. So I just happened to be forcing my wife to listen to a history podcast, and we learned all about that. And then 5 minutes later, it seems, there's a movie on it. And then 5 minutes later, it seems you're now reading a book on it. So there you go.
Yeah, it's something that's always interested me actually. I remember having, I don't know what it was, the little golden book of bloomin' archaeology and deathly myths and legends that people got on adventures and got killed or something, which is possibly the worst golden book title in the world ever, but it's always intrigued me. So these are his diaries that he'd left behind from his previous expeditions, which his wife got published after him and his son never returned. So very interesting, and it's got some black and white plates in there and lots of maps drawn in a very old style. It's really interesting. I confessed to reading about a page in a dozen different places and then having to put it down because I knew I was getting through other books I was reading. But yeah, interesting maybe from obviously it's not African, however, for transposing maybe the game Congo into South America or something like that, but a really cool like adventure sort of a game setting that would make, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and all that is some of my favorite 80s, would it be? 80s movies. And all that adventure of not knowing what's around the next corner and the rolling ball and the traps and all that sort of stuff. It's very D&D-esque as well as being high adventure and a little bit of history, and you can sort of imagine yourself. Have you got an Indiana Jones hat, Dan?
No, I did have once, but it sort of went along the way. But you've got one, so maybe one day I'll get another one.
I've got one. You can be my sidekick then. Let's go. Book our tickets.
Does that make me short round?
It does, yeah, but sure. But you won't need the wooden things on your feet because you're tall enough. So
I can drive the car without the blocks on my feet.
Yep,
okay.
That's it. Yep.
All right, so let's lower our voices, close the doors, turn out the lights, and don't let our partners hear as we talk about what have we purchased recently.
Okay. So Soviets, lots of Soviets. So I purchased 2 plastic box sets of Soviets. 2 command teams, 1 veterans in winter gear.
Is that a Siberian
tank.
veteran box, was it?
No, that was one of the plastic boxes. It's got plastic and steel. Yeah, that's a really nice one actually. It's got the commissar in it with his loud hailer. That's
And
really
do you
cool.
get? Is it
but-
much the same? But you get like metal heads and that commissar model. Is that the story?
Yeah, so it's the same plastic sprues as the winter
Yep.
box. I can't recall how many there was, but you get the same heads as well, so that's handy. But it comes with different heads for veterans. I know they're angrier, I think, is the thing. They look like British paras. And the commissar, and there's also guys with a maximum machine gun. Running along, dragging the thing behind them. I think there might be one other thing in there as well, but I can't recall just off the top of my head. But yeah, that's a really nice box set actually. In some ways nicer than the normal plastic box set, because how many anti-tank rifles do you really need?
Yeah, and it just gives you variation, I suppose, eh?
Yeah. So that was really good. And so just 3 gun, T-34, 85. Are we there yet? So yeah, I bought all that. Apart from that, let me just move my seat sideways here. I won't be a sec, Dan. I won't be a sec. I just got to grab this big pile of plastic.
Okay, don't strain your back now. Don't use your back like a crane.
No. Good one. Okay, I bought a box of British LDV section. I don't know what that, land defence maybe.
Yep, land defence volunteers, I do believe.
It's okay. And it's 10 metal British guys, very very English they are too. And there's a couple of guys with shotguns, and they've got the kind of the hats. I don't know what you call them. It's like a slouchy hat kind of a thing. They're really nice. And that's for Project X, Dan.
Right. Okay. Yep. Project X.
Yeah. And plus, I bought the Campaign Budapest book not so long ago, and I bought the D-Day book. Actually, that doesn't count because I ordered that on the 7th of January when it was first listed, and I'm pretty sure I was the last person in the world to receive it as well. But anyway, is that enough?
That's enough. If you divulge any more, then you'll get put in the stocks and have rotten tomatoes and cabbages thrown at you by the peasants.
Yep. I think I've actually reached the saturation point now, because I have an unpainted, I still have half an unpainted Soviet army. I have an unpainted, Africa Corps box set.
Nice.
And so I've got unpainted Africa Corps. I've got unpainted US winter. So yeah, that's probably enough for me. Yep. So I've been a very naughty boy.
But it has been quite some time and quite a few months since we had this segment on the podcast. So it has to be said that that's an accumulation of all that time.
That's right. And a lot of it was bought on sale, so think of all the money I saved.
Good.
What about you, Dan? And I know you've been buying some weird stuff too. And I know some of it you can't disclose because it's for Project X.
Okay.
But hit me.
My project's Project Y sometimes, I think. But moving
yeah, right.
Moving swiftly on. So I've blown my cover on one of them. So I bought some products from Titan Terrain NZ. And one of them is a Kriegsfish cutter, which is the a converted ship during World War II, where they took like merchant vessels, like fishing vessels and so on and so forth, turned them into basically coastal and sort of and deep sea across the Med, it has to be said, light sort of naval vessels with light guns and stuff like that on there. So really amazing kit, and I've actually done a review of it and put it up onto YouTube, so we can check out the YouTube channel for that. And I've also purchased some buildings off them as well that I won't go into too much further because I have a use for those that we're going to reveal at a later date. To go with the Kriegsfish cutter, I bought the Warlord Games Kriegsmarine box set, so the German naval infantry basically. And I was fortunate enough that just at the time I wanted to buy those, the Warlord did their free shipping, so that was great because I got those sent all the way to New Zealand for free, which is always much appreciated when you only really wanted to buy one box. To have it suddenly get sent free, that was a great thing.
Yeah, again, think of all the money you saved by spending that money.
Well, it's probably half the amount I spent, for postage, absolutely. I've been buying some scatter terrain bits. I can't go too much into those because they'll blow my cover for Project Y. I can talk about something that I've bought that I'm about to put out on YouTube. So I bought from the things from the basement. I bought the Mediterranean Town Hall, and I was poking at that with a stick for quite some time, wasn't I, Rex?
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were lusting after it.
Yeah, I mentioned.
Lusting
so
for
it's
MDF.
nice. It's only the only reason I bought it is to naturally move it through the columns from the lusting after into the purchase column. Really, just to show our listeners that we care about them. No other reason.
Yeah, that's right. Because the more you buy, Dan, the less that there is out there that other people could possibly get, seduced into buying.
Absolutely, reduces the number of them in the wild.
That's right.
So I've got that. I've put it together. I'm doing a video on it for YouTube, and I won't say any more than that. Also, I was very fortunate to happen to sort of be online at the time when a friend of mine from Hungary, which is our hometown, a friend of mine from the gaming club there and also a frequent visitor to the shop there, one of the absolute cornerstones of gaming in that town. His name's George. He decided he wanted to get rid of a whole bunch of bespoke homemade terrain. And I had a fantastic time with that because it was an absolute bargain price. Includes some woods, some of them with fences around some fields, some what looks like a set of Warlord games. If not, then it's well-made, homemade stuff. Bocage, some hills. One of the hills has got a ruin on it. The stuff looks absolutely great. I sent you a picture, Rex. Did you have a look at that?
I did. It's really great. Yeah, it's really, really nice. And a good price too. And it's stored at our dad's place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dad, i.e. the storage unit, happens to still live in that town. So George dropped it off to our dad's place for me. So didn't have to postage either. So that was great. Thanks, George. And it's fantastic kit, and I look forward to getting my hands on it at some stage and/or leaving it there with his permission. So that maybe if we meet up there when you come over next year, we can play some games there.
Yeah, well, it's really nice. So I guess it's probably best you get there before I do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it might be coming home with me.
I'll get Dad to take an inventory. He's good at that.
Yeah, he would be. Yep, he'd type that out to you. No time at all.
And that is sort of all I want to talk about, really. There is some other stuff that I won't go into too much, but that's certainly enough to get me by. I've been really, really busy with work. Maybe we go into what we're lusting after next, and I can talk more about that in a minute. Go on, Rex. What are you lusting after?
I have reached a bit of a saturation point where I'm really
that's
lucky
unrealistic.
That I've got so much stuff, and I'm actually pretty content at the moment, Dan. Sorry, do I have to leave the Wargaming Club now?
No, that's okay. It'll soon change.
It will, yeah. So I need to get some more guys for Project X. So that's one thing that I'm wanting to get. I'm looking forward to campaign Stalingrad now that I've got some troops for that. But that's not till 2020, so I can't lust after that at the moment. My lust is at the moment has moved back from miniatures to terrain, I guess, is probably what's filling my thought process at the moment. And I'm starting on the big modular tile project, Dan, again.
Good, because the other day when we spoke, you said something to me that sort of made me go, oh, and a kitten cried somewhere when you spoke, and you said you didn't want to go and play in your garage.
Hang on. You got to give it a little moany voice, a real moany, whingy voice.
Okay,
go.
You said, when I go out into the garage, it's not the same without your terrain.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you do get a little bit spoiled, don't you? When you play on awesome terrain. First I played on your terrain, then I played on your other terrain, then I played on Brian Cook's terrain, and then I went into the garage and there was some pine trees from Audi with a bit of snow on them that were old Christmas trees, and some Brillo, some green pad bocage, which, they're great, and we did a great job of making them up.
And a giant
feature
that we can't talk too much about.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, that we'll come on to that in a minute. Remind me about that, because I need to give you an update on the giant feature. But yeah, I went out there and I was like, this terrain's just, it's just good. It's not great. It's not excellent. It's not awesome beyond belief. And I know that probably sounds a bit silly, but one of the things, and we've discussed this before, one of the things that we both enjoy is the visual spectacle of it. If I can have a game, that's great, but if I can have a game and get some awesome photos that I can, edit in Photoshop and put up and present and for everybody else to enjoy, well, that really is the icing on the cake. So I've decided that I'm going to get back into the modular terrain building mode. My last flocking nightmare didn't sort of come to fruition, and I threw them away in the cupboard in a fit of rage. But I've decided I'm going to actually make some now out of MDF, and we'll see how that goes.
I do note with some alarm though that once disclosing that statement to me 2 days ago, the first video you sent me a link to was "Why Modular Terrain is Crap" by Luke's APS.
Yeah, and he's got good points with that, and I mean that was a little bit clickbait on his part as well. And I also noticed that he just did a paid review for somebody's modular terrain a week or so ago, and then anyway, but he's right and he's wrong, and he fully admits that there is no perfect solution. When if you have unlimited storage and unlimited money, well, there's a perfect solution. But if you like most people, we always have various limitations. So I think I've got it. I think, Dan, I'm the only person in the world that's got the awesomest idea to make it just perfect. I'm not arrogant or anything, but but I guess I've been thinking about it for a fair while, and that's a joke, by the way. But I think
I knew you were joking.
Yeah, just for other people who don't know me. I have thought it through, a fair amount, and I reckon that I can get something good. And I think the key to it, which is what Luke also said from Luke's APS on YouTube, he said that you get a situation where you have little individual tiles, and you get the grid, like you can't help it. Although, why do people paint the edges of those modular things black? Like as if you don't want to see the lines. Why do they paint them black? Why don't they paint them green or whatever the color of the terrain tile is, Dan? Dan, tell me why, Dan.
I just think it's a thing that's happened. Certainly when maybe one of the largest ones to have ever been seen came out, the Citadel Realm of Battle board, the edges of that were painted black, and mine are painted black, which means that yes, if you do look down the middle, there's a recess. Mind you, if they're brown or green, they almost look black anyway because of the absence of light between them. But I think it's just a thing. I think there's no other answer for that apart from because it's been done before that way.
Yeah, but what he said and what we've talked about before and what I'd sort of worked out on my own was if you have larger tiles, So 6x4 table. Sure, if you have all 1 foot by 1 foot tiles, it gives you the most modularity in a way. But if you go for some 2 foot by 2 foot tiles, then it's less gritty, and you can put more stuff in there. You can put bigger hills on there too, or bigger features without having to worry about them spanning across multiple tiles. So anyway, watch the space.
Cool. Because
so that's what I'm lusting after. To come back to your to answer your question in a really roundabout sort of 20-minute way. What I'm lusting after right now is photorealistic terrain, and so that's what I'm pushing forward with as my B project.
Great, well done. That is a worthy, lustful thought. Right.
What about you?
Well, yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of things. One is I've got some Napoleonics sitting on the box, some Perrys and some Victrix Peninsula ones, and I'm waiting for Perry Miniatures to put out their future release, which is their early Napoleonic, sort of suitable for the Peninsula campaign French infantry, which is sort of skirmishing. They look amazing. The greens are out there, the workbench pits are out. They're out at Salute and everything, so people have seen them. It's just a case of when they fit them into their busy schedule to release them with their tooling issues and all that lead-in time. So I'm looking forward to those come out, because those are the ones I want to buy for the French. Next thing is completely sort of random. So I was sitting there the other night, and I was watching historical things come up on YouTube, wargaming things, and then there was something about American Civil War. And I went, American Civil War. I'm going to listen to watch that Ken Burns documentary on the Civil War again. So I've started watching it again. God, it's amazing. Every time I watch it, it's amazing. And quite frankly, it sort of made me want to play the American Civil War. And that sort of made me look at the Perry Miniatures Battle in a Box, the ACW, and just see what is in that box. It's incredible. And just lust after it, just going, look at that. Have you seen that box, Rex?
No, I haven't. No, I've never sort of had it's not that I haven't had an interest in American Civil War or Napoleonics or anything else, although painting Napoleonics perhaps not so much. But it's just that the World War II stuff and the fantasy stuff that I'm doing at the moment, it's just kind of filling everything. So I haven't gone there. But yeah, it's pretty good, is it? It's got lots of stuff. I mean, they're great sculptors for sure.
It's amazing. So there's like 145 infantry in there, 12 cavalry, 4 guns, artillery pieces. There's a couple of colonels in there. There's like 4 foot of fencing in there. There's a house, a period house from the time, and you just look at it, and then I look at it, and then I look at other sort of boxed products, and I just think, my goodness. And the one that stands out to me is Warlord Games Rorke's Drift box. I'm just a little bit disappointed by the amount of product that's in there. Because if there was more product in there, more rank and file guys for that price, I'd be really tempted. Because it interests me to play, in particular, Rorke's Drift. Maybe not do, that period in general, but just certainly play Rorke's Drift. And the stuff that's in there is fantastic. But when I look at the small amount that's in there, and when you look at their Liberty or Death box, which is another black powder period one, you look at the vast number of miniatures in that for the same price. I know there's 2 buildings in there. I know that there's a third party, I believe's metal miniatures, and obviously so that means it's cutting into their profit margin and stuff, but I just look at it and just think, really? It's like, $395 or £200 or something for this box, and I just don't think that's pitched at the right price level. And yeah, but getting back on the Perry's one, that's absolutely amazing value, and I'm just watching my Civil War and looking at that box going, all this could be mine.
How much is that in Kiwi pesetos?
All that is $199. So I think it's £99 in the UK.
Yep.
It's just exceptional.
That's...
There's no other word to describe it. And you get a quick start
And what about
inside as well, written by Alessio Cavatore, and it's specifically done to get those miniatures in that box playing a game with, and it's got scenarios in it and everything. It's not like, it's not written to the depth of Black Powder or sharp practice or anything, but it's, from what I can see people talking about on the YouTube vids or whatever, it's perfectly acceptable to get started and have some fun.
Okay. Sounds interesting. So is it like Black Powder Light, or is it just a rule set that's been,
I don't know. I don't know.
It's
It's just a rule set that's put out for that, I think. So.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Yeah, okay. So something to think about. You're gonna need a bigger house then.
Well, I found that I found two things about getting into historical wargaming on a greater scale than what we've done before in the past, because as we said, we've always been into it long before fantasy and science fiction. We were into historical wargaming. One thing I found is that you tend to buy. So say if I equate this to say 40k or Warhammer Fantasy / Age of Sigmar. You sort of you buy a new army in those just because you want to play a different style maybe of play, whereas when you're doing historical, you sort of, so say 40k, if you want to play on an ice planet, you slap your space wolves down. If you want to play on a jungle planet, well, you slap your space wolves down. If you want to, play on a whatever Eldar planet, well, you can still slap your space wolves down, and then if the other guy hasn't got Eldar, then you're playing on an abandoned Eldar planet or something like that. But if you're playing historical, you really need the armies to play in those theatres, regardless of even if you're playing a specific battle or not. So regardless of the fact that you're probably trying to match forces or something like that from that time, but you're certainly needing the uniforms, the equipment and stuff like that for those armies, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. And the terrain as well, to some degree. Yep. If you're fighting certain battles, you want the terrain to be appropriate. If you're fighting, Marines in the South Pacific, you want obviously that type of terrain. But there are some advantages of historical, assuming you're playing all on the same scale, and that is that a European building, some of these European buildings over in, in Australia and New Zealand, if your building's like 75 years old, it's like, wow, that's an old building. Yep. But over in Europe, if your building's 400 years old, well, that's quite new,
yep.
So those buildings in Europe can often be cross-credited, and as well as that, some other countries as well, maybe. Perhaps the architecture in American Civil War is going to be certainly different to what you're going to see in Europe. So that doesn't quite stack up, but yeah, for those for Peninsular War or World War II, you can cross credit the buildings, and you don't have to have quite so much terrain, not quite so much storage, not quite so much to buy. So that is a benefit.
Yeah, I mean there are stuff that you can transfer across, like some of the wooden maybe buildings, eastern front sort of buildings from World War II can be a similar sort of wood planking to say they have in North America around the time of the Civil War and,
yep.
and AWI and stuff like that. You start taking out things like real archetypical sort of characteristics, like verandas. You start taking those off or building them so they can sort of be removable or something like that, and suddenly you've got a planked building, a small sort of cottage that you can plonk down rather than plank down.
Yep.
You're right. Like you can a French building or whatever. That's certainly a lot of places like Morocco, North Africa, and then it can be in a place like Indochina. You have your Spanish / Italian / Mediterranean style buildings, and suddenly you can have them in places like the Caribbean and stuff like that if you're playing with pirates and all that sort of stuff. So if you're clever, you can save some money with just adding a few archetypical sort of real character defining pieces of terrain, and that's certainly what I aim for in the collection that I have.
So next time that woman comes up to you at a wargaming event day and she asks you, why do you wargame? You can say, it's because I wanted to learn about architecture.
Yeah. I'll be like
Yeah,
your man out of Something About Mary. You know, the guy who's pretending to be an architect, and he goes, when you're looking at the architecture, try to imagine it in its whole totalitarianism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads me on to
Words.
That leads me on to the last thing I'm lusting after, and that is time. I just want some time to finish some stuff off and concentrate on things fully. At the moment, I haven't had it because it's been full on at work. But next week, the current bunch of trainees I've got will have left, and I've got a week off, a week's leave after this course to make up for all the extra time we've put in over it, out in the field, shift work, all that sort of stuff. So a week's stand down, and there is some stuff getting painted to within an inch of its life.
Well, if you have any time left over, think of me on school holidays and send me over some time, and I'll definitely put it together.
All right, sounds good. And that's about it. That's my wrap up, Rex. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about?
Just wanted to say that our best video yet, which is Assault on Johnny 1, was it? Yep, is about to go live in the next few days, probably before this podcast is live. So check that out on our YouTube channel or on valhallagames.net. It's been a long time coming. It was a great game. It had a great ending. We're not going to tell you how it ended. But we think it's our best one yet. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy the photorealistic terrain. And we have a hill, Dan.
We have a hill.
All right. Well, thanks for talking. I hope the listeners got something out of it. We certainly enjoyed listening to the sound of our own voices, didn't we?
As usual, no, we didn't. But it was all in a worthwhile cause. Hope the listeners enjoyed it.
Fantastic. All right, Dan. Well, keep on painting, and I will talk to you next time.
Yep. Stay classy, Budapest.
All right. Good night.
Wish me luck as you wave me goodbye. Cheerio.